Hey, thanks for checking us out today. This is Shawn Hornsby, one of the pastors here at First Methodist Monroe, and I'm here with my good friend and colleague, the Reverend Alan Johnson. Do you still crack up when you hear that?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah,
I understand.
Yeah.
And Alan, tell everybody what you do and who you are in case somebody's watching or listening and they don't know who you are.
Gotcha. Yeah, so I am married to Shauna. I am the father of Emery, 22, Reed, 20. Emery's about to graduate from Louisiana Tech. Reed's a sophomore at ULM. I work at the Wesley Foundation on the ULM campus.
All right.
Which I spend a whole lot of time with college students trying to figure out how to share Jesus with them.
Awesome. Well, it's St. Patrick's Day, Alan.
Yes.
And so we're doing this. I don't know if I can call this sermon notes, the thing that we've been doing weekly, or if it's just something that I had a wild hair and wanted to do for a while because I love the actual story behind St. Patrick's Day. Not the hyped up green beer and leprechauns and pots of gold. And
pots of gold would be nice, though.
I'm not against pots of gold. I'm not totally against that, but I've yet to find any.
Right.
And so...
hence the podcast and the job.
Going to the old salt mine, yes. On those mornings when I have to get up really early for like sunrise service and things like that, I get out of bed. And I don't know when I started, but years ago I said, "Time to make the donuts."
Time to make the donuts.
Yeah. So
at some point, no one's going to know that joke, though. You
know? I know. So hopefully, if you're really young, and you're like, "What are they talking about?" Just Google "time to make the donuts," and you'll be like, "Oh, okay." So anyways, pots of gold. That's how this is recording is going to go, by the way. We're going to be on target for a moment and then squirrel. And that's okay. And if you're wondering where's the video, the truth is it's just easier to upload without video to do it in audio. And so we'll put some pictures up, and if we reference something, I'll grab it off the internet and put it on there or something. But like maybe when we just said time to get the donuts,
you put that on there. Yeah.
I'll get the donut guy from the
Dunkin'.
That's awesome. Okay, the real story, right? This whole idea that and it didn't have anything to do with snakes, or all the things. What other lore have you heard? 3-leaf clover is a symbolic kind of thing,
sure.
For the Trinity and stuff. So that's kind of cool. But so much like junk the world has thrown onto this, what's really just a great story by itself.
Yeah.
And I think that happens so often in our Christian bank or history books of stories. Is like the world just attaches things to it, and we don't need it. We don't need the attachments because the story's pretty freaking amazing already. I mean, you've got this whole idea that God becomes flesh and walks among us, and and delivers victory through death. I mean, so it's an awesome story. Well, Patrick is a story of a young man, a kid, you might even say, who in the 4th century, like when Christianity is still getting its roots firmly planted, right? But Christianity's made it up into Europe. This is a British kid. I don't know exactly from where. I'm not a detailed historian on Patrick. But he's in Great Britain, and he's kidnapped by Irish raiders and taken to Ireland. And he spends 6 years as a shepherd, farmer, kind of captive. Yeah. And he clings to his faith. Now, it's interesting. I was just reading one account I hadn't read before. His dad was a deacon in the local church back in Britain, and there's some speculation that maybe it wasn't because he was super devout, but because he found some tax incentives in that. So whatever. I mean,
that's how deacons roll, right? Deacon Shawn.
Oh, ouch! In it for the tax breaks. No, I don't think so. Anyways, they but still they were people of faith.
Yeah.
How devout they were is lost in history, so to speak. But he spends that 6 years in Ireland, just really kind of remembering about what about his faith he could,
right,
and clinging to this of God. And there's some of the lore, we don't know if it's accurate or not. I mean, I don't take it out of the context of possibility. Is like one day he gets up and he has a vision, from God to just walk. And he just leaves his chores, his work, and walks.
Yeah.
And some time later, he shows up at a port, and he boards a ship, and the ship takes a long way around, and he eventually gets back to England, to Britain. And there his family's like, oh my gosh, you made it back. We can't believe it. And
Right.
So to kind of get away from the story, but to move forward here is he eventually goes to schooling and is trained in religion. He becomes a priest, and he's sent back to Ireland, which, I think for most of us to experience something traumatic and then go back to that place just seems foreign or maybe daunting right there. But he goes back. He goes back to this place, and he's sent there to bring leadership to the Christians who are there.
Sure.
One of the things that's often said is that there are no Christians there. Well, Patrick didn't bring the faith to Ireland. It was there.
Yeah.
And the other thing is he was called and sent to bring the faith to the Celts and the others who were already on Ireland. And it was just kind of a neat story. And he has a huge, huge history of success. I mean, the Irish monasteries are a big part, a result of his movement, not just him, but others.
Yeah.
And then eventually, some say that because of those monasteries, that missionaries are sent out from there, from Ireland. These Celtic missionaries are sent back into Europe sometime later, generations later, and they are the reason that you have this Reformation and this resurgence of Christianity in Europe. And so, if you want to know more about that, I would encourage you to read a little bit on that. How the Irish Saved Western Civilization is not a bad book. It's a good read. And then, there's plenty of historical sites out there you could go and look some of this up too. And of course, the Roman Catholic Church, big on St. Patrick, because it's just so well known.
But how does all this connect to Conor McGregor?
Conor McGregor. That's good.
Sorry.
That's good. No, that's okay. That's all right. Which one was he again? I thought you were going to say, how does this all connect to the Wesley?
Right.
So I just felt a little bit of inspiration and maybe motivation to say, let's get Alan in here and tell this story of how you are bringing your mission and ministry to college students. Because I think, and part of the story that I've heard you tell recently is, I think there's plenty of folks who would say there are no Christians there,
Sure, yeah.
And that's just not true.
Yeah.
There's plenty for you to minister to, and then there's plenty for you to share the faith with.
Right.
So take us through a little bit about what's been happening in the last year or two.
Yeah.
Because your ministry, like a lot of ministries, has been turned upside down.
Sure.
Because of COVID.
Yeah.
And you've done things that you probably just didn't even think of before.
Right. Yeah, we had to think of things in a really different way. I mean, pre-COVID, we had like a, kind of a set Wesley schedule, a rhythm, where we had a leadership team and we had worship service, and then we had a day that we did outreach through burgers or whatever. And people at First Methodist are a big part of our burger ministry, and that's still in existence. But it was kind of like we had one day where we really were outreach focused, And so when COVID happened, we just sort of had to look around and go, okay, what can we do? What can we do differently? And because students weren't hanging out on campus as much anymore, and everything had kind of shifted. And then so when we came back that fall of 20, I guess, we were, there was limitations on meeting spaces and things like that, and you couldn't have larger groups inside, and everybody kind of remembers all that stuff. And so we started saying, well, how can we go to the campus better? And so we did our burger thing, which always sends us out, and we have kayaks in a bayou, so people come to our backyard, and that was something that we kind of kept going. But then we came up with this idea of these lawn parties where we invited specific groups like ULM tennis, ULM golf, baseball, softball, basketball, whatever, Kappa Sig fraternity, Phi Mu sorority, AOPI sorority, all these different groups. And we said, hey, come on a Monday. It'll be just your group, and we'll do a cookout for you. And then you can hang out and do the kayaks, play cornhole. just sit around the fire pit, roast marshmallows, whatever you want to do. We're going to tell you a little bit about our mission, but we're also just going to get to know you and hang out with you that night. And so every Monday got filled up for the whole fall semester.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. And so we would have different groups every time. And one of the days we had the baseball team over, and I just kind of, like I always try to do, I try to find a few people to have a conversation with while they're hanging out. And one of the graduate assistant was there, and his name's Colton, and we had a pretty good conversation, talked about lots of stuff, and he just mentioned something about, they had a large group, and, it's just hard to get people to, together, and then also to get people to feed them. And they didn't have a lot of events like that going on,
right,
where they were like team events where they had a meal or anything like that. And I was like, well, I got to thinking about that. A couple days later, I walked over to the baseball office and talked to Coach Federico, and I mean, we had spoken on the phone a couple times. Maybe we had met, even once or twice, but didn't have a real established relationship. And I'd say, Coach, how can we help you out? What can we do? And he's told a story of when he was at another school as an assistant coach, how it was at Southern Miss, the BCM director there. The team would go to the BCM on whatever day of the week, and they would eat lunch, and then the guy would talk to him, and he kind of became the team's chaplain or whatever. And I was like, wow, that's kind of cool. I said, Coach, we can do that, and so we just kind of started putting that stuff together, and one thing sort of led to another, and I built up a lot of trust with the coaches and with the team at the time, and just started investing in guys. And you get a baseball team together, even though it's in the South, like a lot of those boys are familiar with Christianity, but they don't all grow up going to church,
right?
And then you've definitely got the ones that have gone to church. It's very different denominationally, like you're gonna have some Baptist kids, you're gonna have some Catholic kids, you're gonna have some other stuff, in betweens, whatever, and so anyway, in all of that, in talking to them about Jesus on a regular basis, we just kind of built up some things, and then some people in the community kind of heard what was happening, and former player and some other people kind of talked to me about different things from time to time. Hey, what are you doing with the baseball team? It's pretty cool, and so I got together with some of those guys, and Corey Taylor in particular is a former ULM player, and he's like, man, I bet we could do sort of a retreat for the team like we've done these men's retreats around here. And so he made this massive list of guys in the community that we put that together, and in January we did a retreat with them, and just we've seen a lot of good fruit from that. We've got 15, 20 guys coming to Bible study every week, and I travel with the team and get to do Bible studies on the road, and then also do a chapel service on the Sundays before the games when we're on the road. And so just many opportunities have come up like that, and like I've got guys talking to me about, well, this is going on in my life, or I've got other guys that I know a little better that I can challenge them a little bit with kind of what they're dealing with and what they're going through. And we're seeing some of them really step up and be leaders.
Awesome.
So it's just super, super cool as to what's going on. And that's one small piece of the puzzle,
Right. So let me interrupt real quick. So you would previously the model, right? And I think this is probably what a lot of churches would do. You were there, you set up, and you're like, come see me.
Yeah, exactly.
And you did some of that, but you had to shift the model to say, hey, what can we do to help you guys out in this season?
Yeah.
We still want you to come see us, but it's not a general invitation. You made some specific invitations.
It's targeted. Yeah.
Targeted. Thank you.
Yeah. Because, back at the beginning, like outside was the only thing you could do for a group, and you couldn't mix your group with another group, because then you could spread COVID or whatever.
Well, especially for athletes, right?
Yeah, and because they had testing and all this stuff they had to go through, so it's a pressure cooker that they were in.
So you found a way to meet their needs.
Exactly, we met their need.
And I want to say that for the church, I think that's one of the things that we overlook is so often. And look, let me just say, if you can hear these kids in the hallways, that's getting picked up on our microphones. It's perfectly awesome, because we're here recording this on a day when we have kids after school.
Yeah.
And they're back there goofing off and getting ready to go do homework, and they're having snack and all that. And so if you're picking that up, just know we're not surrounded. We're okay.
We're okay.
We're okay. And it's music to my ears because that means there's life in the church. And so,
yeah.
hey, no, I want to go back to that thought of like, so often the church is like seriously focused on, we want to be the best of who we are, and we want you to come be that with us.
Yeah.
And so we're asking, and we don't even know it sometimes, and I'm not the first one to say this, but we're asking the people outside the church to be the missionaries, because we're asking you to come to our place.
Oh, yeah, right.
At a particular time, dressed a particular way, speaking a particular set of phrases and words. And we're asking, we say we're missionary in our focus, but the truth is we're not.
We're the opposite.
We're the opposite.
Yeah.
And so
really
you guys shifted that a little bit and said, hey, what can we do for you in this season?
Yeah.
And
how can we speak your language?
Yeah, how can we speak your language? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's
and
kind
it's
of
such a
what we've
great thing
done.
for the church to just ask in this season when you're scheduled, because let's face it, we become slaves. Is that the right? Was that strong? Is that too strong of a word? I don't think that's too strong of a word.
Slaves to what?
The schedule.
The schedule. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And tradition and momentum. And I had more than one colleague say this is a great season for a reset, because people are out of the church, they're out of the habit, they're out of all those little things that kind of we become blind to,
right?
That we think are sacred and they're not. We're out of that rhythm for 6. We thought 2 weeks, right? And then 6, and then a month, or another month, and all this. And some people were out for months.
Yeah,
we weren't. Praise God, but it was a great time for a reset.
Yeah,
and you were probably out more with smatterings of people.
Yeah. The rest of the spring was desolate, and then we had the summer where
2020.
Yeah, the summer of 2020. Yeah. There's. If you know anything about ULM at all, the summer is a ghost town at ULM, except for the weeks where there's freshman orientation. But guess what? Summer 2020, that was all virtual.
Yeah.
So we had no students. I mean, the only way we saw students in the summer of 2020 was if they came to kayak. That was it, man.
You know, I'm glad we have the option to I'm going to turn to a verb, to virtual. But I don't like it. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, it beats not seeing people. It beats not doing anything together.
Yeah.
But I don't like it. And, and even as silly as it was, like for us, that Mother's Day 2020, we had a parking lot service where we borrowed an FM transmitter.
Yeah.
And so we had people pull up in their cars.
Oh,
and the band brought the stage out. We set the band up outside.
Yeah.
And I preached in the parking lot, and people could listen. It was so good. You could see people pointing over this car, that car, and waving at each other. We just want to see each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah.
So that was one way.
Yeah.
The lawn parties, you started getting some momentum going.
That was the big pivot for us. Like we had never done that before. And then now that's like an integral part of what we do. I mean, that's like a way in for us. Like I mean, and we have groups that really take advantage of it. Especially, it works better in the fall because just being outside. When you start the spring semester, it's raining and cold most of the time. So we don't do as many in the spring, but in the fall we pretty much lock it up every week. We've got one, and like and it's not just athletic teams, although that's it's kind of an easy target because they're looking for team building activity type things to do anyway.
Yeah.
And so, but we've established relationships with some of the other sports teams, and I think that's going to grow. I'm praying about a lot of that stuff and opportunities there, and then in the Greek community, we've seen that as well. Where we've seen students. We started these things called Brotherhood Nights, where we're trying to get fraternity guys together on a Friday night and like shoot skeet, eat hamburgers, stuff like that, and
not on campus.
Not on campus. We do not shoot skeet on campus. I want to make that clear. But yeah, we've gone out to
right over the bayou.
Yeah, exactly. I can get the bridge from here, But yeah, so we've gone out to some like duck camps and stuff like that and done it, and the last one we did was out at Chandler Whittington, Dan Robertson, members
Yeah.
of your church, like they were there, and we cooked burgers, shot skeet, and then we have like a small group discussion. And what we did was I took the core values of the fraternities that were there, and I said, let's just break this stuff down and talk about what this stuff means, and where do you think this stuff comes from and the roots of it. And they had great discussions about, hey, yeah, we're not really doing this, but we could be doing it, and Kappa Sig, like the fraternity that my son's in, like that's one of the ones that we're super connected to. And I know we were talking the other day, I told you the story, like I really didn't really want him to go that path, entering into college, for multiple reasons, but it's so interesting how him doing that has opened the door wide open for me to minister to those guys. And we've, one of his fraternity brothers, we've already done baptisms for two of them. We're about to do a third one here in a few weeks, and we've got a Bible study going with those guys. But the cool thing is we've started a Greek life Bible study on Wednesday nights where they're doing the inviting, and it's just like them and another sorority. And I mean, it's growing small, but it's in little increments, but it's growing, and we've never done that before, and so and some of that just has to do with inviting those guys to a lawn party or saying, hey, we're doing these brotherhood nights, and there's a longer, deeper story really that I don't know if we have time for on here, but some of how we started the stuff with Greek life was because we were so intentional over the years with the orientation staff and building relationships with those 23 students. Some of those are fraternity kids or sorority girls or whatever.
Street cred.
Yes, yeah. Well, exactly. Like I built up relationships with them, and then so that fall of 2020, I just said, because I knew the ones they were doing prep and it was virtual and stuff, and I just said, hey, what about let's do some of these from brotherhood nights, that's kind of how we got there eventually.
The trust was there.
The trust was there. The relationship was there because we had served them and they had seen us and seen me be genuine and real and care. And it wasn't about, hey, come fit into my world.
Let me just really double down on that because I think, and it's maybe a product of like our society and who we are and what we get to see on the screen, small or big or medium. We think that with good intentions and a little preparation, we can go out and cash in on our knowledge or charisma or whatever. But you weren't cashing in on that stuff. I mean, eventually you did.
Yeah,
but you built relationships over time.
Yeah.
And not just like a semester.
No, years.
And so I want to encourage anyone out there, especially within the church, if you've been at it, if you've been putting your hand to the plow, so to speak, then don't give up yet, because you didn't. I mean, who would have expected this? Like we could have had a pool of all the things to in 2019 of what the next few years would have held, and no one would have guessed fraternities and sports teams coming to Bible study because of a pandemic.
Right. No, you couldn't. You can't write that stuff, you know. And the thing for us is though too, and this is so biblical, I think, but because God does this with us. But Philippians 1:6, he who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion. Right.
Yes.
Well, so God plays a long game with us, and that's what we've been doing at Wesley with some of this stuff for the past several summers. Playing the long game, like investing in these relationships with these leaders, these orientation kids, because we know that we're planting seeds and eventually something is going to take root. And it did. It took like 3 summers almost. I'm thinking about one kid in particular who was instrumental in helping me get these brotherhood nights started. His name's Thomas. And if it wasn't for the seeds planted of relationship and intentionality with him, I don't think we'd be where we are today, with that fraternity. And
he opened doors, right?
He opened that door, and I think too, like, it's just like with the baseball team. I mean, it's like 41 players or something right now, plus the handful of coaches. I mean, and I've been super intentional with ministry to those guys, and yeah, I'm not going to see all of it. Just like the coach, he's investing in these players, and he's not going to see all the benefits and success, during a season. It may take 4 years for some of these kids to develop as players, and for me, like what I'm doing with them, I mean, I'm probably never going to see most of the fruit, but man, if that comes way later in their life, I mean, we talk to them all the time about trying to shape them and help them to be husbands and fathers and, people who seek Jesus their whole life.
Yeah.
And so it's not just about what we can see right now to make us look or feel good. It's like, how do you really apply this? Because if you really want transformation, then that means you have to be committed to the long game.
Yeah.
You have to.
Man, That's so good. That's so good. So for the church, I think the comfort in that is like, I'm committed to the long game. So if a generation ago or two behind, before me wasn't, there might be some hard times for me,
right,
in ministry. But if I can do that for a generation or two from now,
exactly,
then they're going to reap some of that harvest, and they still have work to do because they need to plant and grow and do all the things that they need to do for generations after them,
right?
Until Jesus comes back,
right? Right.
And so I just want to encourage. It's like what you said is so gospel centered, so selfless. It's and I realize that's just the nature of like where we can be when we're walking with the Lord.
Absolutely, yeah.
Is thank you, Jesus. This isn't about what I get to experience now.
Right.
And I've often thought, Lord, what fruit will I see in my ministry? Not like, I need to see some fruit, but I'd love to see some fruit.
Sure. Yeah.
And then what fruit's going to come that I'll never know about this side of heaven?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I think like you apply that at so many levels too. Like if you're a Sunday school teacher, teaching the third grade, I mean, you may never see. I mean, I still, to this day, I reference a Sunday school teacher that I had in like my high school years. I don't know if it was. I always get confused if it was 9th grade or 10th grade. I think it actually was 10th grade. But about just a thing that he did with us every Sunday. It was repetitive, but it's so much stuck with me. And then I had another teacher when I was like in the 11th grade, Sunday school teacher, that talked about, God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Like that was her verse.
Yeah.
And the only reason I know that verse is because of her.
Right.
And now as I've grown,
hammered it home.
She hammered it home, man. And it is so powerful. And so you don't know, because you're just not going to see it, And I think about that as a parent, right? You're playing the long game. Like I want Reed and Emery to do well in school, and when they were in high school, I wanted them to excel in sports and have good friendships and do all that stuff. But ultimately, I mean, I want them to love and serve Jesus, and I want them to pass that on to the next generation of of our family,
right.
And that's the long game. I mean, I'm not gonna know their kids' kids. I mean, I'm just not gonna. I'm not gonna live that long. But for me to know that they're gonna share Jesus down the line to the next, that's. Man, I mean, that's what I'm talking about,
right?
And I think that happens on so many levels, whether it's ministry that you're doing or, in the church or in your family or just people in your neighborhood, your job. I mean, if you just don't see it for what it is now, it's the long game, man.
Yeah, and that's why I said, man, we need to do this so I can put this together and put it out for St. Patrick's Day, because I think of how many people have come in the faith
because of what he did, right?
Yeah, because of what he did, right?
Yeah.
And others that were alongside him and all of that. And then how many people have come into the faith not knowing exactly the extent of what God was going to do with what they brought to the table.
Yeah.
And so it's like, church, we cannot look at what comes as a result today. We've got to be mindful that God is taking this and blessing it and growing it in ways that we cannot even imagine.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Awesome. So, and you mentioned Sunday school. I go back to, I think if I had to write my story, my God story, it would go back to one summer in Tioga, Louisiana, right? When Miss Cheryl, who was our babysitter, right? Mm-hmm. Mom and Dad would go off to the air base, and they'd leave us there down the road. And Miss Cheryl sent us to the Tioga Missionary Baptist Church, not Southern Baptist,
Missionary
Baptist.
Yeah.
And I had a part in the vacation. She sent us there for vacation Bible school.
Right.
I had a part in vacation Bible school. I had to learn Romans 10:15.
Yeah.
And the trans. I had to, of course, in Missionary Baptist. I learned it in King James.
In the original.
Ish.
The King's English.
Yes. So, but now I do it in like the New Living Translation. But, and how will you go and tell them without being sent? That is why the scriptures say, "How beautiful are the feet of the messengers who bring good news."
Oh wow, yeah.
And that verse has just stuck with me through the years, and I think I lost it for a while.
Yeah.
But then it came back, and I'm like, oh God, I remember. I remember that you were there, those hot summers, when, and it's like you were working through Miss Cheryl.
Yeah.
And who knows who those vacation Bible school people were? I don't know their names. I don't know that I've ever seen them again in my life.
Right.
However, you were working through them.
Working through them. Yeah, no
doubt.
doubt.
So I just want to encourage people, don't think that your offering of talent, time, story, experience, whatever it is too small.
Yeah.
Bring it earnestly.
Yeah.
And I think that the other thing I would take from your story is, folks, be ready to pivot.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you guys, had you not made the pivot, where would you have been in the fall of 2020?
Yeah, I don't know what we would have done.
Because you weren't having your regular gatherings, right?
Yeah. You really couldn't. I mean, it was just so different, So, and we didn't have like a full summer of orientation to meet all these new kids,
right?
And invite them, and it was just bizarre. It was just a very, very interesting time. I know for everybody, but yeah, you talk about the long game too, like just in listening to you talk about St. Patrick or whatever. That, I mean, what an example of that, right? Like, I mean, to leave your home or be taken from your home, and then you got 6 years that you're there, and then you go back home and grow and learn and all this stuff.
Yeah,
and
you got schooled, right?
Yeah, and then get sent again.
Yeah,
to be able to even understand what God's doing, and lining those things up and putting the pieces together. It's pretty phenomenal, And I think too, like I always think about that geometry, lesson or whatever, where the line, comes down, the curved line comes down to the straight line at the bottom of your geometry book in 9th grade or whatever. And it's like, it's going out into infinity. It never really touches the line, right. But it keeps going and going and going. Like, that's the long game that God's playing with us, you know? I mean, and so God's not worried about the timetable, like we worry about so much stuff. I mean, he sees it in a different way. And I know we can never fully see it the way he does, but if we could trust his sight more than ours, then I think that we can go, we can endure in that, and God can keep working that completing process in us.
That's good. So, all right, tell folks how they can pray for the Wesley.
Well, yeah, I mean, we want to be a light on campus. I mean, I think that's always been part of the prayer for us, is pray that we would be, a spark that lights transformation or whatever. We want to be like the beacon, the lighthouse, but we don't want to be a fixed point either. Like, we want to be able to carry the light into the dark places and into the places where people have been burnt and hurt and all that kind of stuff. And so praying for open doors with more of the teams and more of the Greek community, because we have pathways to get to stuff, there. And then just, I think, for favor too with coaches. I mean, because what I've seen God do and use us and involve us in so far has been pretty cool. But I think the more of those doors that can be opened, I mean, I think there's lots of opportunity for good stuff there.
Awesome. So, people pray for the Wesley, and then God's like, hey, why don't you help the Wesley? What's one way they can help you?
Yeah,
or get in touch with you to help you.
Right. So, I mean, we have a website, ulmwesley.org. I'm pretty sure you can send us messages through there. You can, we're on Twitter. I check, like that's another, thing.
Really?
Yeah. The Twitters, I know all of them. ulmwesley.org.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and then you can message us on Facebook, same thing too. But I think too, like a way that to get involved in part of the story would be keeping up with that kind of stuff. Through social media, whatever, kind of looking at what we're doing. We try to post pictures when we have groups over, stuff like that. But I think we have like a Wesley 300. We've always had this vision of 300 people that give $300 annually. Well, that's $90,000 toward a budget. That our budget isn't like a skyrocketing type number. It's 215,000, whatever it is. For everything for a year to operate. But we always talk about being part of the Wesley 300. Like that's a thing. And the other thing that we're doing that we really need people to get behind us, and we haven't really pushed it hard yet, but we're still developing plans to renovate our whole dock in the backyard, because we realize the backyard is like, it's one of the best spots on campus.
It's your front door.
It's the back.
Front door to ministry.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And so we want to make it the best possible.
Did we just coin a new phrase?
I'm pretty sure somebody else already, way cooler than me and you, said it.
Come on.
But yeah, it is.
The back door is the front door to ministry.
The backyard is the front door to ministry. Yeah. And so we
put that on a t-shirt.
We have a dock project that we're trying to do, and we already have $35,000 given to that.
Yeah,
and we know it's going to take more just because cost of lumber and what we're trying to do and stuff like that. So I don't know if it's going to be like 65,000 or something that we're going to have to raise, but our goal is by somewhere in the summer that we have it defined, like what the project's going to look like, and what the number's going to be to get it there. And so if people wanted to, hey man, I want to give the Wesley Dock project. I mean that's something that's going to be, because people drive across that land bridge there and they see it, and we have so many students when the weather's good that come by and kayak, and that is such, like you just said, a front door. It's an open pathway to ministry.
Awesome. So okay. And do you want to say anything about your golf tournament you got coming up?
Oh, absolutely. April 8th, the annual Wesley Golf Tournament. Most of that money, we kind of split it. Like half of it goes toward our 5,000 of what we raise goes straight toward our mission trip to Guatemala that we're sending some people on here in a few weeks. And then the other half of that goes to our general operations of ministry on our campus.
Awesome.
So April 8th, teams of 4. You can be whole sponsor for $100. There's all other kinds of levels and things you can do. So yeah.
Great, man. Great. Good ministry. Love that you made a pivot in a difficult time, and you're reaching people. Probably where a lot of folks are saying there can't be any Christians there, but you're loving on them and bringing new ones alongside of them. So,
absolutely, yeah,
awesome. Anything left? Do you want to say?
No, man. I'm just thrilled to be a part of this deal too.
Awesome. Well, look, if you're listening and maybe you're not part of First Methodist Monroe, but you would like to know more about the ministry here, or if you just you didn't get any of that info and you need a way to get in touch with Alan, you can reach out to me by texting into 318-217-8383. That's sort of our catch-all. And if you'll say, hey, Shawn, put me in touch with Alan, I'll get you in touch with him.
Awesome.
And you'll see that on our website and other places, firstmethodistmonroe.com. But 217-8383 is just a catch-all. If you text in there or call and leave a voicemail, it does everything. It's kind of a cool number. You should get one of those.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
That's good. All right. Hey, thank you. Again, no reason to do this other than it's St. Patrick's Day, and I just wanted to reclaim a little bit of that history and heritage and say there's some great things happening in that same vein. We're going to go into places where things aren't always the most reverent or holy,
right?
And we're going to bring the good news of Jesus Christ there. So Thank you, Alan, for being a part of that.
Yeah, thanks, man. Adios.
All right. We'll see y'all later.